Hello everyone. It is 5:30 on a Tuesday, so you know what time it is. It is City Talks Hamilton. I'm excited about today's episode, today's session, because today we're going to be talking with Katya Abazajian, who is going to be talking to us about 311 service, public data, and public trust as it pertains to municipal government. And so I'm excited to have Katya join us. So, Katya, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. So for those of you tuning in, Katya had some camera issues, so it's just going to be audio, but it's all good. The important thing is people can get to hear what you have to say. So, Katya, before we start, why don't you give us an introduction about yourself, some of the work that you do, and then we can get into your research around 311 services.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Katya Abazajian. I'm a fellow at the Beck Center for Social Impact and Innovation at Georgetown University, and I've been working on open data technology, open government issues in general for most of my career, and have mostly worked with
Oh,
really interested in hearing from you as well about city issues in Hamilton.
Mhm. Yeah, you cut out a little bit at the end there. Oh no.
Hey, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I've been working with mostly in local governments in the U.S., but I also love learning about other cities and how things work around the world, and have done some projects with various local governments around the world. So I'm really interested to hear how things work in Hamilton as well.
Hmm. Yeah, so can you the I know I read an article in the Toronto Star, and the title of the article in the Toronto Star was 311 is supposed to help fix things that are broken in Toronto, but what if it's making things worse? And I'd like to quote, you were quoted in the article, and it says here that you have collected some data on this, and the data that you've collected, multiple studies have shown that 311 data is a more accurate predictor of geographic breakdowns of class, race, and neighborhood change. That is a predictor than it's a predictor of communities' actual needs. So, can you expand on that and tell us what the data actually shows?
Yeah, so the data itself, 311 data, for those who don't know, is data that collects complaints that people have about their communities and in their neighborhoods. And so when governments collect that information, what they're collecting is the calls and information about what people are asking for across the community. But as we know, there are a number of people who don't feel safe, confident asking their government for help. And there are a number of people who do, asking for, but also it reflects the concerns and needs of people who trust government, who trust law enforcement, who trust the solutions that are going to come out. So for in a lot of communities, for a lot of Black and brown neighborhoods, for people that the governments have divested from for a long time, are maybe can be less trusting of those services. Studies have shown that the people who use 311 services are often people who are wealthier homeowning residents who are living in areas where transition is happening and where they're using 311 as kind of a resource to wield authority, and they feel uncomfortable in gentrifying neighborhoods, for example, where they're surrounded by residents who don't look like them. So that's some of the dynamic came up in my research alone. And I think the reason why it's really important to think about that is because a lot of governments are trying to start using data to make better decisions and to make better policy, and they're just choosing the wrong data sources or not actually looking at the entire data source and not understanding the bias that goes into it.
So if let's say a municipality wanted to start a 311 service, what would be the things that they should be thinking about? And the reason I ask that is because here in Hamilton, we there's an election upon us, and the discussion around a 311 service has come out a lot. And so yes, what would be some of the things that you think a municipality should be thinking about if they were to implement a 311 service?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all governments should do a little bit better and still be useful if it's being interpreted through a specific lens. So, for example, with 311 data, if governments are trying to use 311 data to describe the needs of the entire community, that is not an accurate way of using that data because it's not taking the bias into account. But if they're trying to use that data to be more transparent about what services they're spending money on, if they're trying to use that data to understand neighborhoods that are going through change or that are going through gentrification, that might be an interesting way to use that data. And they might also maybe enforce a little bit stronger protections against people submitting complaints that we know are loaded with racial bias. So, for example, issues of like loitering, graffiti, sleeping in public, public exposure, um, criminal trespassing.
Oh
Hear
no.
that information, and it's still provided.
Yeah, you cut out after trespassing.
Oh, sure. So criminal trespassing is one of them, but a lot of these don't even ask for that information. It's not even like an option for what to contribute, and people will just volunteer that information anyway. So that's something where 3-1 programs could do a better job of kind of limiting the amount of information that they're collecting or making it clear to people who are issues that those are not acceptable reports that the government will follow up on.
hmm So then, when at least in my mind, when I think about 311, I think about more garbage overflow, sidewalks that are not AODA compliant, bike lanes that might be blocked, or a tree branch during a storm or during a heavy rainfall that has blocked the road or something like that. So, in your research, is that something that as a 311 service?
Yeah, I think that those are often a majority of the complaints that get submitted, and that if even if there were better protections against the complaints that maybe shouldn't be a part of a 311 system, there still is, I think, kind of an uptake problem among neighborhoods that maybe don't have that trust with the local government yet. So although that is like a majority of the function of the 311, it's still the local government's responsibility, in my opinion, to kind of find ways to build civic participation or to build trust with communities that maybe are avoiding using the tool or don't trust the tool actually work. Because the reality is still that 311 is mostly, even if those are a majority of the complaints, it's still mostly used by homeowners and people in wealthier neighborhoods. And yeah.
So then how do you get, or what's your suggestion around tenants using it to address property standards in their building, yeah, what would be your suggestion around making sure that it is something that's accessible to a large population of tenants who we know also experience lots of issues in their buildings.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a great use of it. I think that cities that I've worked with, a lot of tenant complaints or like code complaints, for example, have to go through housing departments. But that could actually be something that a 3-on-1 program maybe tries to expand and to cover issues that are relevant to a wider range of people. That would really be a great thing to do. And I'm also a huge proponent, kind of in the open government school of thought, in building more transparent and open government. There's a lot of opportunities for local governments to participate in kind of multi to invite the community to actually just what these programs look like. And I think with something as broad as 3-on-1, where it's supposed to capture a really wide non-emergency services, it's important that people are included in the decision making about how that program is designed.
So, speaking about open government, can you explain to some of the folks watching and myself what that actually means? Because I think there might be some confusion around what open government means. So, can you give us a broad overview of what that means?
Yeah. Um,
Oh, you are breaking up. You're breaking up pretty bad.
sorry, video off if it would help, but
Yeah. Why don't we try now and see?
okay. So open government laws can really be a wide range of things. Most open government laws on freedom of information laws. So policy for where those laws state that the general public has a right to access information that
Looks like Katya is having more connectivity issues. Katya, are you still there?
I'm not sure
Oh,
why.
okay. I think stay right there, cause because before that you had good connectivity and it just went to red.
Yeah,
Can you go back to? Okay, it's
I
getting better now.
I haven't moved. Unfortunately, I'm just in a dead zone. But I was talking about freedom of information laws, and so in the old days, that would have been people being able to submit requests for public information by going to city hall and getting like reams of paper from the public buildings, basements, and things like that. And today, it just looks different. It's you can request public information through freedom of information request, and the government's obligated to give those to you because those laws state that all of that information belongs in the public domain and is a public asset. So that's a really huge organizing tool for a lot of people. And I would also say that those laws have changed a lot, or there's been a lot of legislation that is built on that over time. So a lot of governments also have data policies, which mean that they're going to proactively start disclosing information that's not sensitive. And then a lot of local governments will also have data sharing policies or practices where they partner with universities or community organizations or other community residents to share data in a structured format and things like that. So that's all been a part of the process. And the other side of open government is also the actual like people to people of actually building opportunities for community members and people to participate in decision making and in policy making. And so that's a really governments to build systems that are more open, transparent, and accountable to the public.
Hmm. Yeah, and so where do you, in terms of people to people and people to community organization, influencing policy making and decision that impacts their lives, what are some of the best practices that you would suggest?
Yeah, I think most of the governments that use data to to inform policy making and decision making have easier time with open government because open sourcing those processes, kind of like letting them open, just means publishing that data and giving people the opportunity to use that data and to be made. So a lot of that are really successful involve publishing data and actually working working through community engagement processes to give people opportunities to comment on that data or to respond or to build their own stories about what's happening in their neighborhood using that public information. So the best practice is kind of a feedback loop of both publishing a lot of information, for example, publishing 301 requests, but also taking information in. And so responding to people when they say that 301 data doesn't actually um, reflect their needs.
And how do you see the tension or maybe the relationship between publishing data by by municipalities and liability for municipalities?
Yeah, so a lot of local government are worried about
Oh no.
yeah.
Katya. Yeah, can you start again? Can you can you start again? You just cut out. Can you start again? can,
Yeah,
can you
sure.
start?
Yeah, so a lot of local government work liability. I've seen that many occurrences of open data or public data being abused. Um, a lot of the time, what they're worried about is that people are going to find a mistake in the data, but we often just try to tell them it's actually a good thing because you don't want to be using data that's flawed. Like, you want people to see that and catch it for you and help you do it better. And that's kind of the whole way of thinking behind publishing that information.
Hmm. And so how, in terms of making that public, I mean, that allows for some form of accountability, that allows for some form of transparency. How do municipalities bridge that trust, right, between making public data accessible, uh, 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 using that to make informed decisions. Here in Ontario, we have a housing crisis. I don't think we keep data of who has been displaced, how many people are reno evicted, how many people are demo evicted, right? So, how do you see municipalities using data to build trust amongst its residents?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that governments can do well is be consistent. A lot of there's a study out there that, and I'm gonna forget it, but I'll send it to you later in case you want to post the link or something. But it's about how public trust with local governments is built not just through results but also through responsiveness. So a lot of the time, the example is kind of like, if a lot of the time if residents are asking for a specific thing, like, I want this bike lane to be built in front of my house, and the government's not able to do it, say they run out of budget or they don't have the staff or there's some laws against it, they actually found some accessibility concerns or whatever the case. People are not as concerned with just making sure that bike lane gets built. They want to understand the process and hear back from their representatives. So you can imagine if you're the person who's asking for that, you would like to hear from the local government. Well, this is actually what we tried and it didn't work, and this is why, and this is how we're going to move forward, and have an opportunity to be in dialogue with them about that. So building trust is really, it's difficult if you're a government that's going to be closed off and you're not really going to be open to sharing information about what you're doing.
Katya has been having connectivity issues. So
Yeah, I apologize. I thought that turning off my video would help, but it is not.
yeah, no, it's all good. I think we have to get you back so that we can delve into some of the things that you're talking about. And the when I checked, I did check your website, so I've seen some of the work that you're doing, and I think your comment about public trust and being responsive is some of the things that we are seeing, at least here in Hamilton. Here in Hamilton, we had a 24 billion liters sewage spill that happened over 4 years, and our municipality didn't tell us, right? And that is the classic example of how residents then get distrustful about their municipal government and don't feel that they are being told the things that they need to be told. So I think your comment about public trust having a correlation with being responsive, even if the outcome is not what residents want, at least they know that they can count on their municipal government. So we're about 8 minutes away. Katya, is there any suggestions or things that you are thinking about or you found in your research that municipalities should really take a look at? And for candidates like myself that are running, what advice would you give to us?
Yeah, I would suggest that municipalities continue to really build as many communication channels as they can with their residents. I think that's a really important piece, whether that's through data or through in-person participation. That continues to be really important. And I would also speak to people in the community that it's really important that people use those channels and prove to the local government that they're necessary and that they're working. So it takes both sides kind of, but definitely a lot of underutilized public comment channels and things like that governments are required to put out there by law that people can take advantage of. And that's kind of how we start to make progress to convince local governments that communication and publishing open information are really important pieces of governing.
Thank you very much. I know the internet was preventing progress from happening, but we got through it, and I think we should definitely do this again, and we'll wait to see the outcome of the election on October 24th, and regardless of what happens, we'll see if we can have one of these live streams again, so that we can have a conversation about public data, public trust, and how municipalities can really build trust and be responsive to the residents that they are responsible for. So thank you very much. And for those of you that are watching, tomorrow, Wednesday, Ahona Medi and Sabrina Dahab are going to start their live stream. It's going to be Wednesdays and Sundays. And this is a live stream series being hosted by trustee candidates Sabrina Dahab, Ahona Medi. The first episode is tomorrow, Wednesday, September 14th, from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., bridging the gap between trustees and city councilors in Hamilton. I'm going to be talking. I'll be there talking with Cameron Croach, Ahona, and Sabrina. And episode two would be understanding school board governance and the role of school board trustees. Episode three, resisting the privatization of public education in Ontario. And their last episode on September 25th would be COVID-19 recovery, building safer and more accessible schools. So you can tune in to Ahona Medi and Sabrina Dahab's social media platforms, Facebook, and I believe Twitter, and you can listen to the conversation there. So thank you very much for tuning in to City Talks Hammond. Thank you, Katya. We wish you the best, and hopefully, the next time we get you, the internet doesn't misbehave. So, thank you very much.
Yes, I'll be back in full force. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Okay, take care, everyone. Have a good night. And for those of you in Hamilton, the municipal debate starts today, I believe, at 7 on cable 14. So, hop onto cable 14 and watch those debates. See everyone, and have a good night.